Where are you from, Miss?
I am from Sacramento, California.
And for all of the people who've never been to Sacramento and don't know much of anything about it other than the Kings, what's Sacramento like?
It's pretty, I mean, the area that I grew up in, Sacramento, is pretty, like, well, boring in my opinion. It's very, small town feel. Um, yeah, that's the best way I could describe it. It's just small town feel, not much really happening.
Yeah, that's always been an interesting thing to me is people from places because obviously Sacramento is a large place from what I understand. So you have obviously the pocket that you're from, and it never fails to amaze me how Ifa and Orisha kind of find their way to people that are in these kind of environments. So being from said area, how do you begin to realize, or find out about Ifa, Orisha, and Santeria?
Oh, well, it's a little bit of it's an interesting story. So, had no idea about Ifa or Santeria or anything like that. I actually just, it kind of happened. It wasn't by chance, but in my mind at that time, it was by chance. Um, so, this was during the pandemic, and I happened to like just, honestly, I just happened to go across your videos, and I was watching your videos, and you just sounded like you knew what you were talking about, and you do. And so I was just like watching all your videos, and this was before your channel blew up the way it is now, and congratulations again for that.
Thank
But
you.
like I was just watching them, and I was just like listening to what you were saying, and I was like, oh wow, this guy, what he's saying has me so interested in what he's saying, and it just sounds true, and it sounds like something that I want to give a chance to. Particularly your counsel consult consultation video. Sorry. um I was just like, oh, I've never had an EFA consultation before, and why not? I've had other, you know tarot readings and other readings before, but I've never given this a shot, so let's just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're living in a wild time within our spirituality and practice where that seems to be the reiterated fact is, the way we break things down makes it so digestible that, people at least want to, go through that initial process with us, at least to begin their journey. And mind you, you were somebody that you took your time, you did things correctly. Knowing you now, you're very analytical. What was it about Ifan Orisha that really, what was the message behind it that really struck you that caused you to say, hey, I'd like to know more about this spirituality and what it has to offer? What was the concept?
um I guess tapping into something that was nature based. Um, so I'm from Sacramento, but I was living in San Francisco for a while because I was attending school there, and I would constantly, be at the ocean all the time, as much as I could be at, you know, when I was on the weekends, when I wasn't in school, and I just would sit there, and I would just be by myself, and I would bring, offerings to the ocean, and I don't know. I just kind of took advantage to the fact that I was in the Bay. And I think that was definitely a part that drawed me into Santeria and Ifa. Um, but also, you know, like, I guess this is more so now, kind of like as I'm learning, um, the whole concept of just growing and being a better person, or trying to be a better person. Um, and having these stories and these lessons that could really help you and guide you, even if it hasn't anything necessarily to do with you. Like, maybe it has nothing to do with your reading. I mean, obviously listen to the patakis of your reading, but more so like just even when I listen to your podcast now and I'm listening to all the patakis you're talking about and a lesson is being told, like that's might not be specifically for me, but that's something that everybody could just learn from in general. So I think that's what makes Ifa and Santeria so beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ifa Lukumis is a personalized religion. That's why we have our sign. But at the same time, we can learn so much from each other's signs and each other. There's lessons and, various, combinations that might not be your own, but definitely can apply. And you also see a bunch of them that, speak of common themes as well between them. Ifa says that for a concept to be stipulated, it has to be expressed at least within three odus. So they kind of all bind us together, as one would say. Now, ethnically, what are you? Where's your family from? As far as your background, before Sacramento.
I am Puerto Rican and African American. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My family's from New York. And yeah, that's kind of like where my roots are.
Nice, nice. Now, mind you, my family's from Brooklyn as well, and it's a very spiritual place. New York in general. I mean, you look at the immigrancy that has arrived there, especially from the Caribbean. Me being part Puerto Rican as well, and Cuban. You saw a huge influx of our beliefs and things penetrate into the boroughs. Did you have any experiences or see anything kind of growing up or get an idea of, hey, we're not just church going people when you were younger, or was it more, monotone?
No, I mean, really, as far as Ifa and Santeria goes, the family that I grew up with, we were completely disconnected from that. Um, and it wasn't until after I received my hand of Ifa that like things started kind of coming out. Particularly with my mom, she started. I remember. So when I got and I did my hand of Ifa, I didn't tell anybody because I just didn't want to tell anybody because I knew that people were just gonna think I'm crazy because they're like, "Girl, you're going across the country to do a ceremony with people you don't know."
Yeah.
So I didn't even want to go into that conversation. I was like, "No, I need to do this. I need to do this." And I was like, as I'm on the plane home after the fact, I was like, dang, how am I gonna like? Because I live with my mother as well, and I'm like, how am I gonna tell her? Like, she's gonna see all these things and see me do all these things, and now I'm like, what? And so I was super nervous. And I was like, hey, this is what I did, what I was actually doing in Florida. And yeah, and then she was like, yo, like, this is something that when I was a little girl, you know, our family members were initiated in and done. So she wasn't surprised, she wasn't upset or anything like that. She was just like, okay, like this is something I kind of am familiar with. So it's like it's in my blood. It's just was, it just had maybe for a generation it just stopped.
And that's actually a pretty common tale because, when people, like our ancestors started coming from the Caribbean or wherever they're from to this country, they wanted us to be as American as possible. They wanted us to be accepted. They didn't want us to be ostracized. So, certain aspects of our culture that were ethnic were kind of muted to be able to help us assimilate into this society. But now people such as ourselves are really trying to go back because it's incredible how people feel that call or they feel something missing, and it really motivated you to come across the country. And I recall even speaking with Miss Boroye and just, really commending the courage of someone such as yourself to, come from all the way on the West Coast to visit us here in Orlando. And at that point, I really knew that our organization was expanding and things were taking off a little bit more because, I had the privilege of living in Miami and receiving from my godfather who lived in Miami when I did my hand of Ifa. So for someone such as yourself to come, or any of your god siblings as well who have come from, California or around the world at this point, it was nothing short of humbling. So, it's really incredible how even after a generation, we could feel called back, and then things start coming out, things start becoming revealed because, it can be scary, especially when There's things we haven't said to our children that we don't know if they're ever going to interact with or not. That's the trauma that we went through when we immigrated into this land. So, it's a very common tale, and you're part of a wave now that's happening where people want to really know who they are and who were we before Abrahamic faiths. So, nothing but commendable to you, and your Odu speaks of it as well. And, I have a question, as a woman, as an Afro-Latina woman in an Afro-Latin, African descendant faith. How has your experience been? Have you been able to kind of delve into the community over there? What has your response been from people around you? And how does it make you feel to be able to, realign with what your ancestors, practiced?
I honestly haven't delved into the community in the West Coast. Um, yeah, I really kind of just because, particularly in Sacramento, I mean, as far as I know, I haven't really even branched out that much. Um, there's not a huge community here. So, I mean, I honestly kind of keep it with you and Poroye, and I'm cool with that.
Well, yeah,
As
you're
far as
going
my
through your
learning and
growing
stuff.
phase. You're going through
Yeah.
your growing phase, and it's important to grow. I think, I think some people, I won't call it a mistake, but some people overextend themselves sometimes, and they're like, okay, I just got my hand of Ifa. It's like I got, an all access pass into every drumming or every spiritual mass that can occur within, a 5 mile radius. And you really have to develop yourself and grow within that to prepare yourself, because once you're in the arena, as I like to say, or on stage, you're exposed. Not so much, as you performing services or whatnot at this stage, but just opening up those chakras around people that we might not know or be comfortable with necessarily. Your trajectory has been, very sound, and usually that leads to a successful path. Those who try to really overstimulate too quickly, they end up burning out, and then, whatever comes from that usually isn't ideal. But, being somebody that's Afro descendant and practicing this now, how does it make you feel? Is it satisfying? Is it fulfilling? What emotions does it provide you, especially after your hand of Ifa?
Um, it is satisfying. There has been a lot of things that have just been flowing better for me, um, particularly for too with the spiritismo. I kind of see myself being able to kind of allow myself to, I don't know, just be, I want to say be true. Um, be able to just be like, go to like 𝘃𝗵𝗄 or even go to my 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 and just be like, hey, like this is the situation I'm dealing with, or this is what it is, or this is how I'm feeling. And I already kind of know that they know the truth. So it's like, I don't have to hide, I don't have to, be anything that I'm not. I could just be myself. And, you know, with that, it also makes me, um, and I always say this, particularly to 𝘃𝗵𝗄, he always keeps me on my toes. And like, he always makes sure, like, he makes me accountable for myself. So, yeah, that's kind of like one of like the biggest benefits, and like how it makes me feel. It makes me just feel like, okay, like I have somewhere to confide in, and I have people, like I have the Orisha and my spirits to trust in.
I tell you, the relationship between one's orishas and themselves may be the most beautiful one that we have as humans, because it is ironic that the most accepting people that we'll have in our lives are, a cement head, in some cases, where I tell people all the time, especially some clients, they come in, they're like, Baba, I feel lonely. I feel like I don't have a partner, I don't have the career I want, all these other things I have pending. Like, I just feel like I can't express myself to anybody. And I say, you really have to invest that time and energy into what you've received. And, it is very foreign, especially to us that were raised in a Western society, to speak to an inanimate object in a way that's conversational. But this is what our ancestors did. I mean, when you look at the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, Orumila would speak to his spirit pot and, pour himself out to his ancestors. And usually he would see great benefits from that. So it seems very foreign to us. It's a little scary. It feels a little weird. But, being able to have those resources will really help us, from jumping off the deep end sometimes. I remember when I was homeless and living in a closet, my issue and my warriors were right next to my head every night. And I'd talk to them, and I'd express what I was going through, my frustrations as a teenage man, entering into young adulthood. And, I really think it provided me that outlet where I was able to really converse and be understood, even though they never responded. So I empathize with that wholeheartedly. Ashley, there's an organization that you're affiliated with, and or helping coordinate and whatnot, that I know you wanted to speak about today, and we're very interested to hear about it. I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of, let us know what it is and what it stands for, and how's it going.
Yes. So our organization, or the organization that I work for, is called Shine Together Inc. So our whole focus is to help young moms to graduate either from high school and get their high school diploma, get their GED, or get their college degree. So pretty much is our whole focus is assisting young mothers to reach their education, and also to provide any other resources that we can to make sure that they're successful and that their baby's successful. Just because our whole focus is like, we understand that there's if moms aren't graduated at minimum from high school, the likelihood for poverty is higher. So we want to kind of try to fill in that gap as much as we possibly can. And yeah, I'm an advocate, and I work with moms one-on-one, and my whole goal is to assist them in whatever goals that they're trying to achieve. And we're trying to raise money for our organization for next year to, take them out on more events and give them more resources.
Well, I tell you, I tell you, that's a cause that really hits home for me. I think the greatest resource we have as human beings is education. But I think even within that, the greatest resource we have is educated women. And that's not a knock on us as gentlemen, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's intellect is to be respected, but women have an intuition and just a mind and an emotional influence within their psyche that we don't always understand or comprehend. And because of it, it causes us to miss certain nuances and interactions and decisions that we make where, God forbid, a guy makes a decision to drop a bomb on the world. The woman might say, hey, let's have a conversation beforehand. And he'll be like, wow, I never really thought about that. So I think it is so key to mold the young female mind. Me being a girl dad, it's very, very, very important to me that my girls, have that preparation that comes with school and academics, and really teaching them how to teach themselves, as well. It's with academics, it's not just learning how to learn from somebody, it's learning how to learn from ourselves as well, because ideally school should never end, and, those habits are really formulated in adolescence, and it's very key. I think that's what separates modern society and progressiveness is women's suffrage and women's rights, and really facilitating them to be able to realize the education that they want. When we look at the real definition of feminism, it is simply somebody that advocates for female equality. And I tell you, when you look at all of the emotions and things that a woman goes through, even physically, during pregnancy, conception, and ultimately childbirth, at that moment we need all of our wits, because there's a lot of emotions and a lot of things that they're finding out about themselves. What are some of the youngest cases we're seeing? I mean, the people you're advocating for, I mean, what's the youngest case you've seen of a mother?
So far, I believe it's 16.
Yeah.
16.
Yeah. I tell you, young, very young.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at myself at 16. I had my first biological child when I was 29. I got with my wife when I was 24, 25, and I tell you, it's very, even then, you're never fully ready, but, at least mid-20s at that point, things are settling down, hopefully in a way where you're able to have the patience and understanding to put yourself in the back seat and really focus on these children. So to think about somebody that's 16 going through that, where they're still finding out who they are, and now their whole responsibility is another life. I mean, it really lets you know the importance of education and really being developed, because we have to make life, you know, deciding, decisions ultimately, pertaining to this child, and what demographic are we seeing? Is it eclectic, or is it where you are? Is it more of a certain demographic that's going through this? What are you
It's
seeing?
pretty, it varies. It definitely varies. I would want to say though, because you made me think of there's this one member that I work with, and she's currently pregnant now, and I had just started working with
Wow.
her, and she's literally like she was due any day. So when we were initially trying to work together, she was like, I can't, I'm like probably gonna get into labor soon. I was like, cool, understand,
Oh
don't worry.
God.
Yeah, and but then like literally like the next week she's like, let's do this. And then we met up with each other, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna give birth in any day now? She's like, yep, pretty much. And I'm like super proud that you're even here talking to me, because I would not be here. Like I would be at home. And it's like the I guess the tenacity and like the want to like better themselves, because I mean ultimately they know that they have that want, and they have that need to. And you see like very strong young women who just really are like, hey, I really need this help, and regardless if I'm going to give birth tomorrow, like we got to do this, or even now. Like it was just like, I don't know, it just, again, the girls that we like service, they really do have that drive to better their own life, and so I think that's beautiful.
No, it really is. It's the most beautiful thing. I mean, when we talk about estrogen and those instincts, that just activate immediately. You look at a young girl who's a child herself, and then to completely switch into mom mode, is really incredible. But it just lets you know the divinity within women, and that's why the Odu 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗂 says the greatest resource we have is our women, right, and ultimately our children, and this is why they're so precious, and they need to be protected and molded and invested in, because our future lies within their hands. But yeah, I mean, to switch into that mode, and it really motivates me as a father as well to be so present in my daughter's life, my children's life as well. But with boys, it's a little bit of a different dynamic. But just to be that resource, and be that confirmation from a masculine standpoint, because I look at so many cases, where I'm handling clientele, and reading and consulting, and I see this real big common theme sometimes where, and both parents, obviously mom is irreplaceable, but I noticed that a lack of a positive male role model, can sometimes lead to these situations. Now, mind you, dad could be in the house, and, somebody can get pregnant regardless, I mean, things happen. But, I noticed that, it's really important if we can have both. But dad, provides a huge confirmation to these young women in a positive aspect. And, if they didn't have the opportunity to be able to have those confirmations from that through their education and through their orientation within academics, they'll be able to have the wherewithal to make those decisions. And mentorship is huge. I mean, school, it goes so far. I mean, a book, but being able to speak to other, women that are empowered and aligned and have a great head on their shoulders and are being progressive and know their value, it's so key. So, how has that been? I'm sure we have some cases that we're starting now. We have some cases that, are success stories. Um, how gratifying has it been to see some women go through these processes, and achieve their goals, even being young mothers for you?
I mean, it's amazing. um I mean, that is kind of like, what our hope and our role is that we want to make sure that we're not, telling you what to do, but we're making sure that whatever it is that you need done, and whatever it is that you do want to achieve, we are there to kind of like, I don't know, I want to say play defense, like kind of just like make sure nobody's like, stopping you from whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's, and so when they are able to, graduate from high school, or even if it's just something small, like it could be a small goal, like, getting a job, which is not really a small goal, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
things like that are always gratifying. So it is
Well,
amazing.
just being able to facilitate somebody's success is very gratifying, and regardless of whatever sphere you're in, but just being able to provide that support, because you think about a newborn baby. I tell you, this is the greatest experience of my life. I used to think my dream was to be the best 𝗀𝗲𝗹 ever that I could be. It really has quickly transpired into being the best father I can be. But that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of effort. I mean, this thing is going to wake up at 4 in the morning. It's going to have a pamper that needs to be attended to. It might be screaming. It might not go back to bed for another 3 hours. You might get 1 hour of sleep before your shift. This is a lot. If this is taxing on a mature body, mid 20s plus. Imagine an adolescent who's still growing themselves and needs optimum amounts of sleep. To be able to have that support somehow is it could be life saving. And postpartum is a very real thing. And
Hmm.
when you really think about that stage of life, the amount of hormones that are pumping through that body already, and then we couple in pregnancy, and then all these different things. That support system is huge, especially if there is no counterpart or partner to be able to help them through that process, because it's very real, and it's something that needs to be addressed, because if we don't address it, it persists and prolongs itself, and it could lead to other situations. I mean, have you noticed that? Are there resources for that as well within your organization? If said young lady is like, hey, I'm feeling under the weather mentally, emotionally, I'm going through this. Are there people that you guys can facilitate them to kind of relinquish that stress with?
Yes, there's definitely resources that we connect our moms to, whether it be, therapy, whether it be group sessions, because that's also something that we conduct. We try to make sure that we, um, creating community amongst moms, because there is that understanding that, yeah, like you're a young mom, and your friends might not able to relate to you because you're a mom, and you're
Of
not able
course.
to hang out, and you're not able to like do whatever it is that you want to do anymore because you have a baby. So we're able to have those kind of like that community. Okay, you guys are all young moms. You might be going through similar things, and we want to make sure that we're able to give you that space to kind of express that, and that's gratifying, to just kind of know, like, hey, like I am going through this the same similar thing with you, and not going through this alone.
Yeah, that's epic, because to be able to understand someone's journey, sometimes you got to put their shoes on. So to be able to empathize and socialize with people who are in that same demographic, it's so key, because I think the one thing that could possibly cause the most anxiety or fear there is loneliness. When it's just you and this child and all of your obligations, everyone needs that release, because as human beings, we're not meant to be alone. We're actually not meant to go through things alone. There has to be that fraternity or sorority in this case, where we're able to uplift all those that are willing to uplift and be uplifted. So I think that's really elegant. I ask you somebody that may choose or become a mother in the future. How has this changed your mindset, possibly, about not only having children, but the day you possibly do, knowing how to interact and possibly avoid things, or coax certain things, just to be the best mom possible?
Um, it's funny. Well, including my work, I actually have my great nephew who also lives with me. He's not here today, but he does live here, and he's 2,
Nice.
and he definitely makes me like he makes me want to have a kid, low key. Um, like maybe not right now, but like in the future, just because I do get to like connect and have him like just there, and like we like he's like my buddy. He's like my you know I want to say my best friend. Like he's just someone who's always wants to be with me, and like who like just I want to love on. So it's and I'm very protective of, and defensive of, like I know I would give my whole for that little boy. So it's like, yeah, I don't know, it makes me emotional, like thinking about being a mom in the future, because I know it's a huge responsibility. It's like one of the biggest responsibilities in life. But it is something that I do want to do in the future. I just want to make sure it's I want to be in the right space, and I want to be in the right moment. And I don't know when that when that might be. I want to make sure that I give my kids um, all the opportunities that I can give them, and um, make sure that they're in a good space and I'm in a good space for them.
Well, that mindset really is the first step towards success. I mean, it's funny you say, the best friend equation with, these little human beings, right? I'll be with my daughter, and we'll be around the house and whatnot, and I'll be like, oh my God, where is she? Me just walking around, and then, I always have this moment of enlightenment where I'm like, look right behind you, and she's right there. And it reminds me of this quote where it says, be careful what you do. There's somebody always watching you, you know? And they really look to us to be able to have those confirmations and know what to do, And I would say motherhood is the greatest accomplishment for those that are willing and able, because our existence really depends upon, women. And I think it's super key to what's being done on y'all's behalf, because without facilitating this positive reoccurrence cyclically, I mean, we're going to see population collapse, and we're seeing signs of it now. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I do pay attention to what I hear. And, you're noticing now the way things are transpiring economically, especially after COVID. People are really, I don't know what the procreation rates are going to be moving into the future, because COVID really put us in a place of selfishness, right? Where everything was taken away from us. We want to enjoy life. Tomorrow's not promised. It really has planted this anxiety within society, where we want to be completely about us, us, us. And to a certain degree, I understand that. You have to enjoy life. You have to be, nothing's ever going to be perfect before kids, but you have to enjoy, and you have to have at least things, momentum has to have been created to where I'm making a certain amount of money. Tomorrow's been like yesterday for a certain amount of time. There's stability, my partnership, all these things. Yeah, you want to have them in place. But it's really scary right now, because we're looking at demographics, and either people are having children much, much, much later, or they're like, I'm not having kids at all. And of course, this is a personal choice. But my big thing is motivations. You want to make sure motivations for whatever you choose are coherent. And what's scaring me is the idea that this false impression has been placed upon people because of said epidemic, debatably, and it's causing people to fear parenthood. Especially seeing what you guys are delving into as well. So it's we're in a very interesting time, and I think within 10 to 20 years we're gonna get really the conclusive answers. And now, mind you, this organization, how long has it been around, Ashley? When did it really formulate?
As it is now, it was about 2 years ago. It was a completely different program called Teen Success prior to when it, rebooted. So I can't remember. I know that in the 1990s is when they really started, doing their work, because they noticed that young moms were dropping out of high school, and
Correct.
people were telling young moms to drop out of high school, like, oh, like you can't get a degree, you have a child, like you're done.
Yeah.
And that's just completely not true. And so that's definitely another stereotype we that's our whole thing. Like, you can do whatever you want. Just because you have a baby doesn't mean that you can't be whoever you want to be. You can have whatever goal you want. It's just about adjusting. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think yeah, that is nonsensical, because I tell you, if there's superhumans, it's mothers. I think about even my mom and my grandmother. My grandmother would have dinner done by like 11 a.m. Like, she'd wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. She'd have the whole day ready. before noon, and then she'd be like, now my day begins. So you just think about the level of productivity and organization and accountability, and really anybody's capable of it, but if someone is, it's definitely a mom, because it's just a different level of accountability. But I do recall, before teen pregnancy was very, very, very prevalent. I mean, it's like you mentioned the '90s. I remember even me being in high school. A couple of the girls, they were either pregnant leaving senior year, or I remember sometimes that I'd see them with their kids. Within your 2 years, I mean, have there been any statistics or anything to come out to kind of touch on, is the population collapse, possibly some propaganda, or is teen pregnancy going down as a whole? Is it going up? Or people having less kids, more kids? Have we been able to identify any data with that?
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been checking on the data as far
Yeah,
as what the actual numbers are. But
sure.
honestly, like in my opinion, like you know, girls, young women have been giving birth young for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh,
for
yeah.
so it's not something. It's just weird to me that our society likes to make young women feel bad and feel less than because they had children when they're not supposed to, quote unquote.
Sure.
And it's kind of ridiculous that there's a lot of shame, because I think that's something that I've noticed too, working with moms, like kind of like that shame of even like their mothers and their parents, because they're still children as well. Like
Yes.
kind of like, oh yeah, my kid, got pregnant. And it's like, okay, that, like I said, like my mom gave birth, when she was 16 years old. And like I said, my grandmother started giving birth at 16 years old, and so on and so forth. So what truly is the issue here? Yes, we want to make sure, like, I get it, wanting to make sure that your kids are on stable foundation and wanting them to be kids. But, stuff happens, stuff is going to
Yeah.
happen, and you can't really, control them. So the thing that's not going to benefit anyone is making someone feel bad about their decision and what they've done with whatever choices that they make with their life, and especially with the child, because a child should be a celebration. It shouldn't be something to
Yes.
feel bad about.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. I think everybody's journey is different, If, and it's like I said, these things happen, you think everybody's asleep and, everybody's just having a nice quiet evening, and then you have a conversation like, hey, I'm preggy. Just as a father, and as a parent, it's definitely something that's going to catch you off guard, but nature does happen, and good God, I mean, if one of my girls came to me with that, hey, we have to assume this as a family, please don't get rid of my grandchild,
Mhm.
I now, and that's a whole nother topic as well, is, you look at the pro-life argument and all the different things that have occurred, I ultimately want to avoid exterminating any life. I do. I walk around the cockroach. A duck is walking, in the middle of the street. I drive around it, and especially with a human life, I don't want it to go anywhere. But, I also understand that as a man, I have no right to speak on or give an opinion on anything that a woman does with her body whatsoever. But ideally, if we can and we can preserve this based on circumstances, I would love to. And, let's get together as a tribe, and let's bring this life in, and really edify him. You look at Africa and you look at our spirituality. It takes a tribe, it takes a village to raise a warrior. It takes a village to raise a queen, and a king, and all these different concepts. These are things that came in the New World. And you look at what is the motivation behind this shame? What is the motivation behind this stigma? because, and not to get into, too many particulars, but it might be focused on a particular demographic that's trying to, ultimately, be destroyed or imploded when it's like you said. I mean, people didn't last as long beforehand. Our life expectancy now is, they're pretty much saying we'll make it to the 80s, if we make some sound health decisions. Back then, you were lucky if you made it to 50, 60, I don't know, 40. So people were like, what are we waiting for? Maybe, the cost of living wasn't as much. The strains weren't as much on the family and the home. I mean, to be able to, provide in a way where, your significant other is able to stay home and function, or, also provide from home. These are all luxuries, but before it wasn't as strenuous. So, you begin to wonder what is the motivation behind this propaganda and, this false shaming and whatnot. It's a woman expressing herself and ultimately giving us the greatest wealth and luxury we have, which is a legacy, which is children. So it's definitely something to be celebrated, like you state. So as far as the fundraiser, what are the specifics on that? How can people provide? How can people donate? How can people possibly get involved? What are the specifics so that people can do that?
So on our website, shinetogether.org, you should be able to, there should be a donation button on our website, and pretty much donate whatever you can, even if it's a dollar helps. So, yeah, just go onto our website and yeah, you'll be able to access that.
Now, as far as the organization, what direction are you guys going in? Are there any new things coming up? As far as things you guys are going to be incorporated, is the course or the caseload to the point where, you guys are pretty much just focusing on what you have right now? Anything other than the fundraiser going on within the near future?
We definitely been talking about also working with fathers, just because, we do,
Nice.
at the end of the day, we want to make sure that, you know, if our moms are with the father of the child, that we want to like work with them
Beautiful.
together, and we even seeing with our single dads that need, and those resources, and the resources are usually not there for them because they are usually focused on the moms.
Yes.
So, we want to make sure that, anyone who's able to take care of a child and who has that need is taken care of. So that is something that we're working on in the future.
I really love that, and I really hope that happens. I'd be a huge advocate for that because I tell you, the man's experience is incomparable to the woman's. We don't carry around a child. We don't go through that kind of pain. Like we will never understand. But on the other side of the quarter, the single male father experience, I couldn't even imagine it. I thank God that me and my wife are so harmonious and so compatible because the idea of being a single father really it's pretty terrifying. It's pretty terrifying because there's certain nuances, especially if you have a daughter. There's certain nuances that as a man you really look for those confirmations with your wife, how to do this, what's the best way to do something. You're constantly seeking that counsel. I think that's why there's so many Instagram reels of dads asking questions, or the dad dressed the girl like this, because we're just trying to make sure we don't mess up. So the idea that there's gentlemen out there who are going through that alone is really saddening to me, because there's some really good men out there, and I think it is important that they have that outlet as well, because the male mental health situation in this country, I think it could be so much better, especially by nature. The male is taught to hold things in, be resilient, be stoic, be a rock. And there are so many feelings that go through that, because, they've even done studies that show, how our hormones change when we have children and how much more emotional we become. I think it's so key to have resources for those gentlemen as well, because, it's a wild fraternity, being a father, it's like the other day, I had a moment with a dad. We were doing the same thing. I think we were readjusting a stroller or something, and we were like, "Stay strong, Dad." You know what I'm saying? It's a fraternity. So, it's really important to uplift those brothers as well, especially the ones that want to be there for their children and be with that woman. And I think there's nothing more honorable. So I get a little emotional there, because it's the most gratifying thing, but it can be very taxing the idea of going through it alone. So, um, yeah, that's really wonderful. So, Ashley, what are your next steps? 2024 is upon us. What are some of your goals? The ones you'd like to at least publicly express. What are we trying to do this upcoming year? What's new for you?
Um, Honestly, just keep, definitely, when it comes to spiritismo, just because that's really been something that I've been like honing in and focusing in on, trying to, continue my development with that, and making sure that, oh, my health for sure, like trying to like take care of myself way more. I'm definitely a little bit of a hermit, so I like definitely need to like make some resolutions to just go out, have some fun. It's okay. And yeah, just that's pretty much it. Just really just take care of myself and try to take care of the people who I love, and yeah.
Beautiful. And before we get into things going full circle, could you explain the tapestry that's behind you? I've been looking at it all interview,
Oh,
and
no,
it
we see.
looks very interesting. I think there's some legs.
Yes, it's just of four women.
I
Oh,
knew those were lady legs. Yeah, man. There's a beautiful couple of female orishas back there. You got 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁. You got a daughter of Ogun back there, maybe. You got a Yemaya priestess. Yeah, that's awesome. What's the history? What's the story on that one? That's beautiful.
honestly, not there wasn't. Again, when I bought it, I just liked it. But
Yeah.
going into that, though, I noticed that when in some of my dreams, I do have four women in my dreams a lot,
Wow.
that have reoccurred. So I definitely think, um, when I got this, that was spirit kind of like telling me to get it, like, and like having them represented. So.
No, it's got some good energy. It's definitely a power piece. And you just at the end of the day, regardless if it was two, three, four, or five, when you see a bunch of aligned, value recognizing sisters together, great things happen. So I think it's a commemoration of our conversation, and Ifa in general being the first spirituality to empower women and people of all walks of life, and helping them understand through our divine feminine faith that there is no limits for the woman, there is no limits for the mother, there is no limits for the man who aligns himself with women such as this. And I think it's a beautiful message, and that you're spreading, a wonderful service that you're providing, and I think it's going to positively affect lives. And if enough people do what you're doing, we'll be able to make even more of a difference. So I just want to commend you, and if you have any final words for our community, you're more than welcome right now. Any advice or anything you'd like to state?
Um, One thing that you had said when it came to like, just men in general being like, or having to hold things in, and it kind of made me think of like, well, man, that's really true. And a lot of the times, we usually ignore men's emotions, and we don't allow men to express themselves or be, or let them cry, or let them just be vulnerable. And so, definitely, expressing that. And I definitely want to make sure that, my great nephew, he understands this too. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay. Just because you're a man doesn't make you any less of a man. To having emotion, it actually makes you a better man, because you don't turn those negative emotions don't turn into anger. So, I guess, my message to the community would just be like, allow everybody. We are all human, and we all need, to feel. So, yeah, that's it.
I tell you, he's very lucky to have you, and I tell you, I remember, because I'm a son of Oshun, I've let out some good cries, and when my daughter was born, I'll never forget. I cried from the moment she came out to like the moment the nurse visited us when we were already in the room, and I remember a nurse came up to me and said, um, "Are you okay?" Because they thought I was gonna pass out, But yeah, the poor thing, she was cut in half, and I couldn't contain myself. And I remember, I told her, I said, "I've never been this happy in my whole life," and she said, "There's nothing more powerful than a man who can wear his tears." And I'll never forget that. So I commend you. I thank you. And I tell you that you're the people you're advocating for are in good hands, knowing the human being you are. And I think through your spirituality, through your experiences, and your dedication to this cause, I expect wonderful things, 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏. So I really appreciate the conversation and you being a wonderful representative of our faith at this time, especially to that demographic, which is so important to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Baba.
Guess what, guys?
Play it.
It's that time again to where we get to show some shout outs to the members of our community who also show love for this channel.
We love you and we appreciate you.
That's right. So if you guys want to join our channel, it's real simple. There's a little button right under this video that says join. We have 3 separate tiers that offer 3 different perks that you guys get.
And take advantage of it. I mean, Ashley is a member and she has her episodes. So please, guys, if you want to be on an episode on this channel, join the membership program. Or if you're in the membership program, let us know and we'll get you on.
That's right. Okay, guys. So here we go. Shout out to the VIPs. We got 𝗀𝗶𝗱𝗲. He's new.
Joel, thank you for joining. Welcome.
All right. We got 𝗃𝗶𝗿𝗃𝗏. That's
Shady.
new.
Nice.
All right. Shout out to 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗏.
𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗏. Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to the Ramirez Dynasty.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We got some super fans here. We got shout outs to James 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏.
Thank you, James.
Shout out to Mama Magical. This is their 8th month with us.
Wow. Thank you, Mama.
Shout out to Dr. Valerie 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗍.
Thank you so much.
And shout out to Lawrence.
Lawrence, thank you.
Yeah. So there we go, guys.
Well, a couple closing thoughts before we go ahead and disconnect, guys. New shirts out. Be sure to visit Botanica Candles and More. We got some new drip. I got to hook Phil up.
Wait, so we can order that on the website?
Absolutely, yeah. There's going to be links by the video, all that stuff. Spiritual needs, products, services, all those things can be handled on the website. We mentioned the membership program. Definitely check out the podcast audio if you're unable to watch sometimes. It's doing very well. Yeah. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And until next time, guys, see the light.